For many years, the story of Mel's hole existed only as a whispered mystery. A supposedly bottomless opening somewhere in rural Washington that defied explanation, consumed anything thrown into it, and seemed to attract unseen attention. Now, for the very first time, advanced artificial intelligence has been used to analyze and map this legend in astonishing detail, exposing things no one ever imagined could exist beneath the surface of the Earth. It raises an unsettling question. Is this the evidence authorities never wanted uncovered? Was the hole merely an unusual geological formation? Or is it something far more ancient, unfamiliar, and possibly alive? For decades, Mel's hole was nothing more than an eerie tale passed around late-night radio listeners and obscure online forums. A man named Mel Waters claimed that on his remote Washington property, there was a strange opening in the ground that wasn't just deep. It was seemingly endless. There was no visible bottom, no echo, and no logical explanation. Under normal circumstances, such a claim would have been quickly dismissed by the scientific community. Yet the story refused to disappear and continued to surface over the years. The tale first gained wide attention in 1997 when Mel called into the Coast to Coast AM radio show, a platform known for discussing unusual topics, but also for challenging extraordinary claims. His tone was calm and matter-of-fact, more like someone describing a minor inconvenience than announcing a world-altering mystery. He explained that he had lowered a fishing line weighted with lead into the hole, letting it unspool again and again, until it extended over 15 miles without ever finding the bottom. There was no heat coming from below, no tug, no sign of resistance, only an endless drop into darkness. As the story developed, even more unsettling details emerged. Dogs refused to approach the hole, growling and pulling away whenever they got too close. Birds avoided flying over it entirely. Locals had used the hole as a dumping site for years, discarding old appliances, worn-out tires, and even animal remains. Yet no sound was ever heard as these items fell. There was no thud, no splash, no echo. Everything that went in simply disappeared without a trace. Local folklore seemed to support Mel's claims. Long before he purchased the land, Native American legends spoke of a cursed location in the area, a place that was not to be entered, not because of spirits or creatures, but because it was said to be not meant for people. According to these stories, it was a gateway to somewhere else, something that existed long before the land itself. Scientists, however, were quick to challenge the idea. A vertical shaft of such depth should have collapsed under the extreme pressure of the Earth's crust. Even the Kola super-deep borehole in the Soviet Union, the deepest man-made hole ever drilled, reached just 7.6 miles and required decades of effort, massive funding, and advanced equipment. Yet Mel claimed his hole extended more than twice that distance using nothing but simple tools and curiosity. If his claim was truly impossible, then why wasn't it simply brushed aside and forgotten? Instead, the story took a darker turn. Not long after his radio appearance, Mel reported that men dressed in black began showing up on his property. Soon afterward, access to the area was cut off under the excuse of a nearby plane crash. He also claimed he was offered a large sum of money to leave the country, along with a warning never to speak about the hole again. After that, Mel Waters vanished without a trace. Over time, the story slipped into the deeper corners of conspiracy culture. Satellite images of the location mysteriously appeared blurred or distorted. Amateur investigators who attempted to reach the site reported GPS malfunctions as they neared the supposed coordinates. Some people who dug too deeply into the mystery claimed they received unusual phone calls, found their online accounts suddenly locked, or, in at least one case, discovered that all of their research had been erased overnight. By the 2010s, Mel's hole had become more than just a strange story. It turned into a symbol. To some, it represented evidence of hidden government experiments. To others, it was a natural anomaly science had yet to understand. No matter the interpretation, there was one common belief. The truth had been buried under layers of secrecy and silence. Around this time, a new kind of investigation began, not led by curious hikers or conspiracy theorists with handheld cameras, but by a coordinated group of scientists, engineers, and former military technicians using highly advanced equipment. Their most powerful asset was not a drill or a lens, but an artificial intelligence system capable of interpreting what the human senses could not. Their goal was not merely to peer into the hole, but to fully visualize it, every anomaly, every shape, every shadow, in a way never accomplished before. What they would uncover had the potential to completely change everything we thought we knew about the legend and whatever might truly be hidden in the darkness below. Although the plan seemed straightforward in theory, nothing about the mission was ordinary. In early 2024, a small expedition, funded through private sources, was assembled in complete secrecy. This team did not consist of television ghost hunters or thrill seekers looking for a scare. They were experienced field engineers, former defense contractors, and specialists in underground mapping. Individuals used to working in environments most people will never encounter. They arrived with equipment typically reserved for high-security inspections, deep cave rescues, and military reconnaissance missions. Still, the most important part of their operation wasn't human. At the heart of the project was a next-generation AI scanning system that combined photogrammetry, LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and electromagnetic field sensors. This was not about capturing a few grainy images of a mysterious shaft. The objective was to create an ultra-precise, three-dimensional model of Mel's hole down to the millimeter, with the AI analyzing data instantly to detect patterns that human observers might completely overlook. Before any device was lowered, the team established a secure perimeter around the opening. Every piece of equipment had backup power sources and protected data storage to withstand electrical surges or interference. The structure they assembled at the edge of the hole looked like a mix between a deep-sea deployment system and a miniature launch platform. Suspended from it was a cylindrical scanning drone, packed with sensors and coated in matte black material to minimize glare as it descended. At first, the descent seemed uneventful. The drone's light sliced through the darkness, revealing walls that were far smoother than anyone had anticipated, almost polished, as if the earth had been cut with extreme precision. The AI instantly identified this as highly abnormal. Natural formations, even volcanic tunnels, are typically uneven and chaotic. These walls, however, were uniform, balanced, and precise. They appeared symmetrical, consistent, and unmistakably intentional. As the drone descended deeper, the AI began layering data. Photogrammetry captured every contour of the walls, thermal sensors scanned for heat sources, and electromagnetic readings searched for disruptions in the surrounding field. By the time it reached 200 feet, the AI detected something unusual: a complete absence of microfractures. In natural geology, all formations show stress lines, the scars left by shifting earth. Yet here, the walls were flawless. Running a material density check using the resonance from its pings, the AI uncovered something shocking. The shaft didn't match the local basalt sandstone composition. It was denser, stronger, and in some areas it completely absorbed the signals. At around 340 feet, the drone's LiDAR revealed a second anomaly: thin, perfectly spaced horizontal ridges encircling the walls like rings. These weren't random mineral deposits or roots. The AI labeled them as structural reinforcement indicators, a feature expected in a man-made tunnel, not a vertical shaft in the middle of nowhere. As the drone continued downward, every foot uncovered more mysteries. At 500 feet, a sudden spike in electromagnetic readings sent the compass haywire before it stabilized again. The AI marked this as a localized EM distortion, probable active source, meaning something down there was actively radiating energy. Pausing to let the AI process the data, the team discovered results even more difficult to explain. From all overlapping scans, a preliminary 3D model of the first 600 feet emerged, and it was unnatural. The walls were perfectly parallel, with identical reinforcement rings every 50 feet. At 2 points, narrow horizontal openings led into side chambers. Too symmetrical to be caves, too precise to be accidental. The deeper the scan went, the more it resembled a constructed shaft rather than a natural hole, something designed to descend continuously. The AI's findings became even more unsettling when it overlaid a faint heat map from one side chamber. A small, steady warmth appeared, not geological, but the kind emitted by something operating. It wasn't debris, and it wasn't dead. The team initially thought they were observing a strange geological formation, but the AI's data suggested something far more deliberate: a structure that might never have been part of nature at all. When the AI's full composite loaded onto the main screen, the shaft's appearance defied all expectations. It looked as if the ground had been bored with machine precision, yet there were no tool marks, no debris, nothing to indicate human machinery. Its inner diameter measured exactly 14 feet from top to bottom, perfectly consistent. The AI flagged this as statistically impossible for a natural void. Geologists tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but the data was unwaveringly precise. Rotating the AI model revealed even stranger symmetry. Every 50 feet, thin ledges or rings protruded no more than 2 inches from the wall. Unlike rough mineral formations, they were smooth, uniform, and evenly spaced, resembling inverted ladder steps built for something not entirely human. Density scans complicated the mystery further. While most of the shaft's material was denser than surrounding bedrock, certain segments aligned with the ring's reflected signals in a way suggesting composite alloys. Cross-referencing known metals revealed no match. The AI simply labeled them unknown material, high structural integrity. Other anomalies emerged. At 280 feet, LiDAR revealed a perfectly straight horizontal seam cutting a 4-foot-wide section of the wall. Spatial reconstruction indicated a void beyond the wall, roughly the size of a shipping container. Thermal analysis showed the space was gently warm, slightly higher than surrounding rock, suggesting something inside was holding heat, though for how long remained uncertain. At 470 feet, a half-circle bulge protruded from the wall, no more than 3 feet wide, composed of the same metallic density as the reinforcement rings. Behind it, a narrow channel sloped downward before disappearing from sensor range. By now, the model no longer resembled a simple vertical pit. It appeared to be part of a larger engineered system. The AI even produced a structural stress prediction, indicating the reinforcements could theoretically withstand extreme pressure, vibrations, and seismic activity. Whatever this shaft was, it was built to endure, not collapse. After hours of examining the model, one engineer finally spoke aloud what everyone feared. It hardly looks like something we are discovering, more like something we are trespassing into. If the shaft was constructed, it had purpose, and anything with purpose had a creator. The AI continued its analysis, marking certain voids and wall sections with pulsing red indicators labeled as potential access points. One of these points was more than a void. It was a sealed chamber containing something that would push the investigation into dangerous territory. The markers weren't random. They highlighted precise zones where density, temperature, and geometry diverged from the surrounding structure. To the human eye, these changes seemed subtle, but overlaying LiDAR, thermal, and electromagnetic data revealed a more astonishing truth: doors. The first chamber was located 342 feet below the surface. From the main shaft, it looked like a shallow recess, only a few inches deep, framed by one of the metallic reinforcement rings. Yet the AI's cross-section revealed that behind this surface lay a hollow space nearly 20 feet long. The density map suggested that the interior was partially filled with material that wasn't stone, metallic echoes, consistent with manufactured objects. Temperature readings added to the unease. While the surrounding rock remained at a predictable cool baseline, inside the chamber, the AI detected 3 distinct warm zones, steady, separated by feet of empty air. The heat was too controlled to be natural. Whatever was inside was holding on to thermal energy, as if it were powered. Deeper still, at 511 feet, a second chamber appeared. Unlike the first, it didn't align with the metallic rings, seeming instead to have been carved directly into the wall. Its entrance was sealed with a material that absorbed most scanning signals, forming a near-perfect shield. Despite this, the AI managed to capture faint outlines inside, for cylindrical shapes arranged in a grid, each about 6 feet tall. Electromagnetic analysis made the chamber pulse like a beacon. The signal wasn't strong enough to interfere with the drone, but it pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. It wasn't just emitting power, it was doing something with it. The third chamber was smaller and branched upward, as if intended to be accessed from above rather than below. It showed no heat signature and no EM activity. But the LiDAR scan revealed something that made the team freeze. It was not empty. Inside was a single, irregular shape, taller than a man, narrow, with a silhouette unlike any known machine or natural formation. The AI labeled it with organic-like geometry. Silence followed. Here, organic meant something entirely different. This structure existed half a mile underground, inside a shaft that shouldn't exist, inside a sealed chamber that no human had opened, at least none recorded. The question arose whether to risk lowering a probe. The danger was obvious. If the chamber seals were structural, breaching them could destabilize the entire shaft. And if the entity inside was touch-sensitive, the outcome was unpredictable. The AI ran predictive models to understand the space's purpose. One hypothesis suggested the chambers were maintenance bays for the shaft's equipment, implied by their spacing and reinforcement. Another, based on heat and EM data, suggested something far stranger: containment units. Containment for what, however, remained unknown. The debate ended abruptly when the AI flagged the control terminal. Motion detected in Chamber 1. The movement was subtle, a shift in one of the warm zones by only a few inches. In a space that had been still for possibly centuries, even this slight motion was impossible to ignore. As the team stared at the feed, they realized something deep in Mel's hole had moved. This was no longer a simple scan. They weren't alone. At first, nobody moved. The red indicator on the AI's display blinked once, then remained steady. Motion detected. Inside a sealed chamber, hundreds of feet underground, in an environment where no life should survive. The drone's thermal camera replayed the moment. One of Chamber 1's warm zones shifted slightly left, only a few inches. That brief motion triggered the AI's high alert mode. Verification routines ran to rule out noise, sensor drift, or software errors. All returned clean. Something had moved. The LiDAR sweep followed, sending precise pulses into the recess. The return signal was off. Instead of a fixed surface echo, there was a flicker, the kind you get when scanning something not still. The shape flexed slightly, adjusting its position. Even stranger, the thermal map showed the heat signature didn't fade with movement. It brightened fractionally, like a pulse quickening. Silence fell over the control tent. The lead engineer murmured it must be a malfunction, but his voice was unconvincing. The AI had already classified it as low-frequency kinetic activity and noted similar micromovements in earlier scans, moments humans had missed. Then came an EM spike. The drone's compass spun violently, its orientation glitching before stabilizing. Overlaying the data, the AI showed that the EM burst coincided exactly with the last recorded movement. Could be mechanical, someone whispered, but no one sounded convinced. If mechanical, how long had it been active? Decades? Centuries? And why was it sealed? The team debated retrieving the drone, but the AI's predictive module recommended a close-range, high-resolution scan. The system prioritized this anomaly based on the interplay of motion, heat, and EM activity. The drone descended another 8 feet to Chamber 1's access seam. Floodlights illuminated nothing but smooth, unbroken wall. Yet the sensors screamed with activity. LiDAR briefly stuttered, then revealed a tall, narrow outline inside the chamber. Its proportions didn't match human anatomy, nor was it amorphous. The AI couldn't classify it as geological or biological, just an unresolved object. Silence filled the room. The next sweep erased the outline, leaving static for a few seconds. Then the video feed degraded, horizontal tearing, then freezing completely. The AI tried to reconnect for 37 seconds of inactivity. Finally, in the frozen frame, the light inside the chamber shifted. Not from the drone, but reflected back from something inside. 2 pinpoints of brightness appeared, exactly where a pair of eyes might be. Then the feed went black. In the minutes that followed, the team hauled the drone back to the surface. The winch screamed as it cranked. The tether came up intact, no brakes, no fraying, but the drone itself was dead. All onboard storage had been wiped. Every piece of preserved data survived only because the AI streamed its analysis in real time to an off-site server. The drone had witnessed something uninvited. Now, however, it was clear that something had been found, buried deep within Mel's hole. Continuing the scan would come at a cost, because within hours, the team would realize their data wasn't safe, and neither were they. There was no celebration when the drone returned. No claps, no cheers, not even a whisper above the wind. The device sat on the work table, its matte black casing intact but colder than the surrounding air. Inside, the solid-state memory was a blank slate. The data they had just captured, the raw footage of the moving anomaly, was gone. At first, the team assumed a hardware fault, caused by the electromagnetic spike from the chamber. But the AI's off-site server still had partial telemetry, enough to confirm that the onboard data hadn't been corrupted by accident. It had been deliberately erased. Logs showed an overwrite command issued milliseconds before the feed cut out. The problem: no one on the team had sent it. The AI flagged the incident as remote intrusion possible, meaning someone, or something, had accessed the drone mid-descent. Even with the secure, hardwired tether, the intrusion was undeniable. As they began reviewing the fragments preserved on the off-site server, more problems appeared. Workstations started failing one by one. First, the mapping engineer's laptop froze, blue-screened, and then refused to boot. Next, the thermal imaging terminal locked up, its fan roaring until the power supply burned out. Within an hour, 3 machines were dead. Initially, they suspected a localized surge or environmental interference. But a more chilling pattern emerged. The machines weren't failing at random. They were dying the moment someone tried to open files containing the chamber anomaly scans. The situation escalated when an encrypted message appeared on the team leader's satellite phone, a device not even connected to their field network. The message was brief but terrifying. Cease operations. Do not transmit. Leave site. There was no sender ID, no signal origin, and no record of an incoming call or message. 2 hours later, headlights appeared on the dirt track approaching the perimeter. 3 black, unmarked vehicles stopped far enough to be seen, engines idling in the fog. No one emerged. No lights came on. The team watched, tense, until the vehicles backed into the tree line and vanished. Later that night, the AI sent another alert. The faraway server, hundreds of miles away, detected multiple intrusion attempts. Whoever was responsible seemed intent not on deleting the remaining data, but on copying it. Logs showed bursts of outbound traffic directed toward encrypted IP addresses. By morning, the team had completely lost server access. Their hosting service shut down the account under a government directive, without explanation or paperwork. The last secure backups were gone. The only remaining copies were on portable drives, physically disconnected in time, sealed in anti-static shielding, and stored under armed watch. It became clear this was no longer just an environmental risk. This was active suppression. Someone or something wanted every trace of the anomaly erased, just as the hole itself was hidden. The question was no longer what had been discovered, but why. And before the AI's systems went offline, it left one final file. A reconstructed image revealing the shaft extending far deeper than anyone had imagined, connecting to patterns at 2 other locations on the planet. The last file the AI transmitted was unlike anything the team had seen. It was more than a scan of Mel's hole. It was a map. The rendering showed the shaft plunging far beyond the sensor's range, descending for miles. But the real shock were the 2 faint, impossible lines overlaying the map, linking the shaft to locations far from Washington. Global coordinates traced them to a Nevada desert and a remote, uninhabited region across the world. At first, the team assumed a software error, but cross-referencing seismic and satellite anomalies confirmed that both sites shared disturbing traits: electromagnetic interference, disappearing wildlife, and ancient legends about bottomless pits or cursed ground. The Nevada site was particularly alarming. Geological data matched Mel's hole almost perfectly. Same diameter, identical reinforcement patterns, and a void-like density. It was as though the structure had been replicated. The overseas location appeared barren on visible imagery, but decades of thermal data revealed intermittent heat blooms beneath the surface, echoing anomalies found in Mel's sealed chambers. The AI concluded, probable linked structures. If true, Mel's hole was just one node in a global network. But for what? Communication, transport, containment? No one knew. Another startling detail emerged. The reinforcement rings of the shaft ended about 1.9 miles down. The structure narrowed slightly at this point, and its walls, made of an unknown material, absorbed thermal and electromagnetic scans almost entirely. The AI couldn't see beyond that depth, but it could feel something. A faint, ultra-low-frequency vibration pulsed from below. Hours were spent isolating it from background noise, and the pattern was precise. 2 short pulses, 1 long, then a pause. Repeat. Perhaps it was a code, a warning, or a signal. The possibility was staggering. If there were an active force operating deep within, Mel's hole was no longer an isolated anomaly. It was part of a global system. A cold silence fell over the camp. If the entity in Chamber 1 had reacted to the drone earlier, then the signal was likely not random. It was possibly responding. This meant the hole was far more than a puzzle. It was an open channel. And whatever existed down there might not stay quiet for long. If this investigation intrigued you, hit like, share, and subscribe, because the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Click the video on your screen now to see what another AI scan uncovered. A discovery that could rewrite history itself.